Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Apologetics Radio. You're on KSTJ 90.7, where we talk all things Christianity and apologetics. My name is Micah Hunter, and I am here with Zach Winter,
That's me.
Shyla Smolinski,
Hello.
and our second guest speaker of our radio show, Leo Ostegard.
Greetings.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yes, you did.
Very Norwegian.
Indeed. Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, we're the Apologetics Radio. We do apologetics. But Shyla, what is apologetics exactly?
So apologetics, it actually stems from the Greek word apologia, or a defense. And basically what we do is we make a defense to what we believe to be true. 2 Corinthians 10:3-5 lays this out beautifully. For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. So basically, that is apologetics. 2 Corinthians 10:3-5 is perfect for what apologetics is.
Yeah, just the idea of going in and engaging unbelief and just destroying that and untruth wherever it may be found. I know it's used for both for believers and unbelievers. Believers, you run into people doubting stuff, and then also unbelievers, they think Christianity is false. So it's for both believers and unbelievers. Yeah, so Shyla, we already mentioned Leo Ostegard, but what exactly are we going to be looking at today? What is he going to be talking about?
Today we're going to be looking at the argument for God from a beauty perspective. Now, Leo, what in the world does that mean?
And tell us a little about yourself too, Leo, while you're at that.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked, Shyla. My name is Leo Ostegard. I am a senior computer science major here. And I became really intrigued with beauty as it relates to God, because I see so many beautiful things out in the world, and I feel like there has to be an explanation for them. So let me just walk through what I believe beauty is and why it's important that we discuss it. Beauty is essentially, there's a lot of different definitions on beauty. I can give you the Oxford definition real quick here. Beauty is, according to Oxford, it's that which pleases the aesthetic senses. I have a deeper, more meaningful definition of beauty. It's an eternal, perfect form. It's something that relates to God or divine characteristics. And why is beauty important to discuss? Well, it turns out we are motivated by beauty in many different areas. If you look at areas in such as academics and work, even in recreation, we go out and we seek beauty in those places. We go out to visit beautiful areas of the world. We seek beautiful answers to questions that come up in academics, and we find beautiful ways to work and to solve problems. And so I also wanted to give a quick history of beauty before we...
Before you do that, I know you maybe mentioned this a little bit, but what exactly makes something beautiful, Leo? I mean, are there certain characteristics that define something as beautiful, or is it just kind of beauty in the eye of the beholder? How exactly does that work?
Yeah, so beauty is something it's not like a traditional, it's not like something that you can discreetly describe, give discrete criteria for.
Okay.
So for example, something that is strong, you could describe it as how much it can hold, like a bridge, how much weight it can hold. But beauty is something a little bit deeper than that. Beauty is, sorry, losing track here. Beauty is something that transcends this sort of discrete criteria that we prescribe to it. And beauty is, I would posit that beauty is not in the eye of the beholder, because there are things that, there are things that are beautiful, and things that are not beautiful. Like, for example, you can look at a mountain landscape, and in contrast, you can look at roadkill on the side of the road. One thing is definitely beautiful. People would agree that it's beautiful, and the other is not. So beauty is not something that we can describe with maybe a set list of rules or criteria, but it's there nonetheless.
And yeah, and you said you're going to look at the historical kind of the record in that. You kind of look at history. That's kind of what people have thought through time, isn't it? Beauty is something that can definitely be described, and it is something that's objective.
Yeah, this idea of beauty existing merely in the eye of the beholder is a very recent idea. And in the vast majority of human history, it's a very minority view. You can look at people like Plato, Augustine, Aquinas, all of these philosophers and great thinkers thought of beauty as something intrinsic to the object rather than existing in the eye of the observer or in the experience of those perceiving that object. For example, Thomas Aquinas, he stated that beauty consists of integrity, proportion, and clarity. And it pleases when seen because it reflects divine order. So yeah, the idea of beauty simply existing in our eyes or in our preference or taste is a very recent phenomenon.
So when did that really start to change from having where Plato and Aquinas, you mentioned, had this more objective view? When did it kind of go more towards the, hey, it's whatever I think it is, man? I mean, anything can be beautiful, just it's might please you to me. When did that start happening?
Yeah, that started happening really in the Enlightenment era with the rise of Enlightenment thinkers. David Hume is one of the pioneers in this. He held that beauty is not in objects themselves, but in the mind of the observer. So it arises from a sort of sentiment, a sort of refined taste of the observer, and that's where we get beautiful things. Interestingly, though, he did not believe that all judgments, all people claiming these things are beautiful or maybe not beautiful, he did not believe that those are all equal. He believed that you could cultivate good judgment, good taste in things that resulted in an accurate sort of judgment of something as beautiful or not.
We still had some sort of idea of an objective better to certain things than others then. So we hadn't quite gone all the way into the subjectivity yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you can look even beyond that in recent times. It's very, very recent that we have a total, some people biting the bullet saying that there is no such thing as beauty. And it's interesting when you talk with some of these people, you often find them making beauty claims, and you often find them chasing things that are beautiful in their work or whatever, even though they claim that there is no such thing as objective beauty.
So yeah, that is great, Leo. So I think we've established then, so at least historically speaking, beauty has been considered objective. I think that also just kind of lines up with what people experience. I know you mentioned how when someone walks up to someone, they say, "Oh, that is beautiful," not just "I think it's beautiful." So yeah, so that's kind of so objective beauty does exist. So kind of going to that formal argument, the argument from beauty. Why can we make an argument from beauty to that God exists? How do those connect together?
Yeah. So I borrow from William Lane Craig in this a little bit. If any of y'all have heard of the moral argument, it goes a little bit like this one. Basically, we start with the first premise is if God does not exist, objective beauty does not exist. Well, the second premise is objective beauty does exist. And therefore, we come to the third premise, which is therefore God does exist. So the major pushback that most people would come to is on that second premise, where we get objective beauty. But that's the argument. If we can show without beyond reasonable doubt that objective beauty does exist, then we can come to the conclusion that God must exist.
And I guess maybe I'm not following exactly. So why exactly is it that beauty and God must be synonymous? Like, why is it that if objective beauty does exist, I mean, why can't a world without God also have objective beauty?
Yeah, good question. I think it's because this beauty, a world without objective beauty, does not have a God that has beauty as a characteristic. So let's just consider the world without objective beauty. Can a God create that world? Well, certainly if a God created that world, that God must not have been beautiful, or that God must not have created beauty at all. The conclusion from that is that basically we don't have a creator. We have the universe and we have everything within it, but we don't have a sort of beauty that transcends it. And because we find beauty in the world, kind of like an opposite of that, because we do find beauty in the world, there has to be an explanation for that beauty. And so that's where we get the idea of God existing from objective beauty.
Yeah, to give a recap kind of that, maybe, Leo, you could give me a grade on this recap. But if God exists, almost by definition, he's the one that gets to set the objective standards. So if we find an objective standard of beauty, therefore God is the argument, right? That
Exactly.
is kind of the framework of the argument.
Yeah. If we have that, that cannot be created within the world. That cannot come from us, essentially. It cannot come from our perceptions, and it cannot be of the eye of the beholder alone. It has to be from God.
The
Yeah.
term objective there is very important to the argument. It's the reason why you make the framework off of the moral argument, because objectivity and subjectivity are the thing that's what the argument's about. But
Indeed, yeah. So we find this thing where we can see beauty everywhere, but if we ask ourselves the question of where it comes from, our intuition points to something that is in the object itself, something that the object exemplifies, rather than from our mind. You can just even see this in how a child looks at maybe a beautiful mountain lake, and they say, "Oh, that's pretty," or "That's beautiful." They don't say, "Oh, it's my eyes perceive this as beautiful. I think this is pretty." It's natural even in adults to know how the mind works and how the eyes perceive. We have this inclination to say these things are actually beautiful.
And one thing you just reminded me, I haven't thought about this in a while, of a story of one of my young cousins when they were like 3. I mean, they're from a Christian family, so they have that biblical background, but she was like the girliest princess. I mean, she loved everything pink. There was one day seeing a sunset, she ran inside. It's pink. It's pink. He knows it's my favorite color. But yeah, there you go. In that idea, she was totally basing this idea of this thing she saw as beautiful. It's like, it's God. God made it. So there you go. There's an idea of someone within a Christian worldview, of course, but making that idea of beauty points back to God.
I also think it's interesting that if we're connecting the moral argument with the beauty argument, from the moral standpoint, you would say that someone who says in all cultures rape isn't wrong, you would almost flinch at that. You would say, huh? What? And in the same sense with beauty, if someone were to say that roadkill is beautiful, it's almost like a flinch. It's like, huh?
I'll give the example that Leo led us through when he gave this presentation to our group. But he had a picture of the Mona Lisa, and he also drew a picture of the Mona Lisa. And he held both of them up there in front of us, and he said, which one is beautiful? And, of course, all of us, except for one person, Shyla, Shyla wanted to be funny, and he said Leo's was prettier. But, yeah, it's no offense, Leo, but you got nothing on... Is Da Vinci right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
the other Leo. Yeah, that's right.
The other
Sorry,
Leonardo.
Leo. You don't got anything on Leonardo da Vinci. He's clearly the Mona Lisa was prettier or more beautiful than your picture.
Yeah,
and that's to give another example of more on the beauty side of the argument that Shiloh brought up. There is a standard there that isn't necessarily just all subjective. Like, no, there's something there, and that's what the argument gets to.
Yeah, clearly one points to the standard of beauty more than the other. And I asked after Shyla perked up and said he'd choose my painting. Well, I posited the question, well, what properties make the Mona Lisa more beautiful than mine?
And we will have to quick take a break there, Leo. We're gonna...
Good cliffhanger.
Good cliffhanger there. So if you want to know what properties make something beautiful and
We'll
some
answer
examples of what
after the
beauty
break.
actually are,
Think of it yourself.
we'll answer that after the break. So in the meantime, we're going to listen to Oceans by Hillsong. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to Apologetics Radio on KSDJ 90.7. My name's Zach Winter. I'm here with Micah Hunter, Shiloh Smolinski, and also our special guest, Leo Ostegard. So,
Howdy.
Leo, you left us on a cliffhanger before we went to our break, so we're going to make you keep talking. So, Leo, take it away.
Yeah, so to answer that, what if I used... Well, the question was, what actually makes Mona Lisa better than mine? Well, what if I used more colors in mine? I actually only used one colored pencil. What if I used... what if I took a few art classes and I added some shapes to it? Maybe I would get closer to that objective sense of beauty. But I don't think I would quite get there. The key idea with the Mona Lisa and my Mona Lisa is that one is clearly more beautiful than the other, but we can't quantify that beauty. We recognize it, but we can't describe it in concrete terms. And that's what's so profound and, dare I say, beautiful about beauty. This idea that we can chase it our whole lives and never quite catch it.
Yeah, so that right there is very, very interesting because the idea of we try to quantify something, but you just can't. But it's almost like you can a little bit, but the more you try to quantify it, the less you can actually quantify it. It's very much synonymous with beauty. I mean, art classes, artists, great artists throughout time. You can look at art, you can look at the things that people do, say these are objectively better, I'll throw that word in there, objectively better, more beautiful than these things. Why are they more beautiful? And then you go, oh, this, they use the color red here instead of the color yellow. But then almost at the same time, it's like, okay, so this is the equation that I need to follow to make something beautiful. And they make something ugly. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. But as you said, that's almost the beautiful thing about it, is that beauty is not something you can just make a rule book about.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah. And in my talk, I shared a quote from a friend of Alex O'Connor. If y'all have ever heard of him. He's a popular YouTuber, agnostic, and he was talking about a time that he went to visit a city of Corinth, which is a city in the Mediterranean. He was standing on a hilltop overlooking the city and just mesmerized by the beauty of it all. And he asked his friend, he was really curious. He asked his friend, when you see this, what goes on? His friend is Christian, by the way. He asked his Christian friend, what goes on in your mind when you take all this in? And his friend responded, Alex, when you analyze something, you try to take possession of it. But when you enjoy it, you let it take possession of you. And I thought that was a really profound statement on beauty and what we ought to do when we experience it.
Yeah, the best way to enjoy beautiful things is to just enjoy them. And it's simple, nice and simple. Just enjoy the beautiful thing. Don't overanalyze it. The best way to see that objective beauty is to just see it.
Yeah, exactly. And we can see that in today's world with social media and everything. You can go out into nature and look at a mountain landscape and just enjoy its beauty for what it is. But when you try to analyze it and start looking at all these rules, and maybe you try to make your own mountain landscape, it doesn't really work out in the same way. The beauty that you experience is not the same as just taking it in. It's kind of like enjoying beauty is you are consuming the beauty that was already there. But when you try to analyze beauty and you try to tame it, you are trying to create beauty from yourself. And it seems like beauty, like the field of mathematics, it's a field of discovery. We can discover beauty in things, and we can actually use it to, create art. There's many great paintings and sculptures and everything out there to portray this beauty, but it's something that we discovered first. We didn't invent.
Yeah, so you mentioned math there, Leo. What are some other examples that are like universal to people that everyone just automatically acknowledges this is a beautiful thing?
Yeah. So we can go into maybe design. I touched on this a little bit in my presentation. I put up a picture, of course I can't do that on the radio, but I put up a picture of ATP synthase. For any of you biology nerds out there, you'll know that's found in every one of our cells, and it's used to create ATP. And it functions actually like a machine. It functions like a mechanical device. It rotates like a motor, and it's got a beautiful design in its simplicity and its function. And we can see that beauty in design and even man-made things too. But I'm really struck by its the design of this thing within all of our cells, this kind of thing that we can't even see with our own eyes, but is working and actively keeps us alive. Another example is music. As you're listening to the radio, there may be one kind of music that really strikes you and maybe even invokes an emotional reaction, in which it doesn't for others. But that kind of beauty that you experience, or that kind of beauty that you experience in that music, points to something deeper, something great about that music. And we all have different preferences and different tastes, but it's really quite something that it affects us to the level that it does.
And something to kind of highlight here that I'm thinking about right now is you've mentioned, so that's three examples, just kind of nature, mathematics, and biology or design in
Yeah.
biology. They're all beautiful in their own way. And I mean, I'm a little bit of a math nerd. I'm an engineer. So I can look at math and I can see beauty in it, but I can understand Shiloh, maybe, for example. Maybe not you. Let's name him Bob. Bob just hates math or something, and he thinks it's ugly, he thinks it's gross. But what you find in the case of like mathematics or biology, you find that the people that are immersed in the experience, for getting back to what we had said earlier, the people that
Yeah.
are most immersed in the experience see the beauty the most. That's getting back to that sunset and just being there, watching it. That's how you see the beauty. The term that you had brought up on Thursday with mathematics is it's complex simplicity, almost in a sense. I may be paraphrasing you a little bit,
Yeah.
but the beauty in mathematics, once you're on the higher ends of mathematics, maybe is you can see the complexity, but you also see all the simplicity that makes up the complexity.
For sure. Yeah, I use the term simplicity with depth, and I wanted to go into, like I said at the beginning, why is it important to discuss beauty? Well, it turns out we're actually motivated by it, and especially mathematicians are motivated by beauty. If you ask a mathematician why they're a mathematician, the answer you'll get is probably not money. Turns out there's not a whole lot of money involved with being a mathematician. Sometimes there is, but generally that's not the motivation. Math has a lot of connections, kind of unexpected connections. It's very unified in all of its different fields, and like Zach was saying, it has a lot of complexity, or I should say, it has a lot of simplicity with profound meaning, profound explanation. And so Einstein, he talked about this a lot in his math career, and he talked about how he was seeking a profound and beautiful explanation for the laws and the things that we find in the universe. And, you know, just looking at the equation E equals mc squared. The fact that we can so concretely, so simply describe how the universe functions using an equation like that is mind-blowing to me. And it's just another pointer of how beauty motivates us.
I'll give another example from Einstein, and this is something that's way over my head, but Einstein, when he was developing the theory of relativity, and he basically found evidence that the universe was expanding, and this was like something he like actually hated. Like, he thought it was ugly, he thought it was gross. He didn't like the fact that the universe was expanding. So he put in a little term to like quantify to make it stable, just because that was a more beautiful form of the equation. And that's beyond the argument of like what the equation is, how it works.
Yeah.
That's an argument of beauty, which is crazy to find in mathematics. But as you said, mathematics is something that is they're pursuing beauty. Einstein didn't put that constant in there based on that's the facts.
Yeah.
He put it in there because he's like, it's got to be more beautiful than that. And that's the whole meaning why he put that little constant in there.
And if I remember correctly, for that story, he was later proven correct.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing about it is that, well, it's funny because he put it in because he wanted it to be
Yeah.
not. He put it in because he's like, that's ugly. I want this because it's more beautiful. And then it's correct. Just cool, fun fact story. Yes.
Yeah. No, and that doesn't stand alone. In the field of mathematics and physics, I forgot their names, but there is a pair of physicists who are working on equations, I think in kind of the same field, in relativity, and they came to this conclusion They came to a set of beautiful equations, basically, in their work, and it was not accepted by the establishment at the time. Their work wasn't accepted by the physicists at the time, but they still held to these equations because they viewed them as the most beautiful solution. And it turns out, and this was in, I believe it was in the mid 20th century. In the late 20th century, it turns out their equations were actually correct. There was an error in the establishment at the time and how they thought about the laws of physics, and they were proven to be correct long after they completed their work. So there's a lot of that in, especially in the laws of physics and mathematics, where beauty just holds everything together. Beauty is actually an indicator somehow of reality. Yeah.
Yeah, and one that is great, Leo. One thing that's interesting with beauty, it's kind of one of the three main traditional values that have been held, like in, I mean, just for everybody. You have goodness, you have truth, and you have beauty. And it seems to me, would you agree that beauty honestly gets left out a lot of times? When, I mean, particularly in apologetics. I mean,
Yeah.
people really take a lot of look at truth, sometimes goodness, almost never beauty. So why do you have a reason why you think it gets left out? And then how, and we're kind of talking now why we need to be including it. But yeah, why do you think it really is that important, and why do you think it does getting left out so much?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the truth and the goodness aspect of it is far more out into in the front of apologetics. It's spoken about more because it's more in our face. If you look at truth, what can you say? What can you believe if there is no such thing as objective truth? Can you even make truth claims? Can you even say there is no such thing as objective truth if that doesn't exist? So it's far more pressing on apologetics. Apologetics is an intellectual pursuit, I would say. It's making a defense for something through reason and argument. So truth stands out for them.
A little more intuitive for those type of more cerebral people.
Yeah, for sure. And for those who are not as, into apologetics, beauty actually stands as a unique opportunity to kind of delve into it and ask the question why. Ask the question why some things are beautiful. And to finish my point, with goodness, we see so much evil in the world. We cannot escape it. You look at the evils of Nazism and the Holocaust, and you ask the question, how could that ever happen? How could people do such a thing? And that's it invokes such a strong response. We naturally have a longing for justice and for goodness. And so if we hear people say, there's no such thing as objective morality, it invokes something in us. And so I think that's another thing it takes a higher place than beauty. And another thing about beauty is that it's harder to grasp. And partly for the reason that there are some things that are bad, that are morally bad, people would agree are morally bad, that can be beautiful. When you look at Nazism, they actually attempted to build a beautiful world. They attempted to build a utopia. The issue was their idea of beauty was distorted. Their idea of beauty was the pure Aryan race, whereas others that didn't fit into that picture were deemed ugly by them. And so beauty is something that we need to recognize as being objective, and we need to properly recognize it for what it is. Going back to that, sorry to pick on you again, Shiloh. going back to the idea that my Mona Lisa is more beautiful than Leonardo da Vinci's is clearly wrong. There is such a thing as having bad taste. Now, and to complicate the matter, and I hope this makes sense. There's a possibility that my Mona Lisa would be more beautiful than Leonardo da Vinci's. And what I mean by that is, let's say there's a mother, and her child came home from school one day, and he drew this picture of the Mona Lisa. And she put it on the fridge. She's like, "Oh, great job, honey," even though it looked like mine. It wasn't very good. Let's say something happens to that child. Next day, they go to school, get on the school bus, and tragically, an accident happens. That child passes away. This is the last thing that they have from this child. And to that mother, that is very, very beautiful. Now, it's more beautiful than any other painting that she sees. And so that doesn't necessarily, well, that points to the thing that we've been talking about. That points to the thing that the beauty doesn't lie within the object. The beauty doesn't lie in a set number of criteria, but rather it lies in its relation to the divine, its relation to how God is. And turns out God is, if you're a Christian, you know this, God is loving, and the love between a mother and her child is a beautiful thing.
I kind of want to highlight something though. Like in that argument, in that framework, we're not saying that the mother is the one deciding, okay, this is more beautiful because of this reason. We are saying she finds it more beautiful because there is a set and a standard that when you look at this example, you can see how they line up. That's what we're trying to argue here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think all of us would agree that's an important thing to understand, because if you lose that in the story, it almost takes away from the story itself. Because if the mother's just assigning beauty because I want to assign beauty to this because it's my last way of hanging on to my son, for example. In the other sense, though, in the other framework where objective beauty exists, it's a way better story because the mother, even though going through a hard thing, has a beautiful thing out of it. And it's one of the lines I heard this weekend. I went to a conference on Saturday, is when you're in times of turmoil, you have to remember that there's a testimony on the other side. And times of ugliness, I mean, you went into this on Thursday, times of ugliness are the best things to show us beauty. It's sad truth unless you realize the beauty in it. Like, to use that beauty word, just throw it out there because it's an easy word to say, but the ugly things are necessary to show us that standard of beauty.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all right. Well, looks like we're coming up on another break here, so stay tuned to Apologetics Radio, and we will be back to wrap up this talk about the existence of God based on the argument from beauty.
Welcome back to Apologetics Radio on KSDJ 90.7. My name is Zach Winter, and I'm here with Micah Hunter, Shiloh Smolinski, and our special guest for the day, Leo Ostegard. So before the break, we were discussing on objective beauty, how it fits into kind of these examples that we bring up, and how it works as an apologist. How can you use beauty in your logic, in your argumentation? So now going forward, we talked about kind of the Christian perspective. Let's get into the other worldviews of the world. Leo, you're going to take it away with atheism/naturalism.
Yeah. So first off, what is atheism/naturalism? It's essentially the worldview that everything we see in the world is all there is. There's nothing outside the universe. Everything is contained within it. All the laws of nature and everything that we see here is basically all there is to it. And the first problem with this worldview when it comes to beauty is kind of what we talked about earlier. It denies human intuition. If you hold to naturalism, you essentially make beauty a tool that's valuable only so far as to when it benefits us. Naturalism, paired with evolution, says that beauty is a way that we've evolved. We've come to appreciate beauty in different things because those things have provided some sort of survival or evolutionary benefit to us.
A really good example of this one, Leo. I've gotten taught this one a lot because I'm wildlife and fisheries major. Peacocks. So you look at the peacock. The male peacock's got this huge, beautiful tail fan, and the naturalistic explanation of that is, well, it's the thing that attracts the most females while limiting the mortality of the male the most. So it's not beautiful. It's just the females like it. It's a sign of how fit he is, how he can actually survive and make all the stuff good. So it's not really like that beautiful. It's just a signpost of how good he is at surviving. So it's really just reductionistic. It's, in that case, the peacock's beauty is only good to helping him reproduce more. It's not actually something that's there for people to enjoy. It's just, it helps the peacock have more chicks. And that's really like eggs, not hens. Zach is laughing in my ear over here. But yeah, that's in a naturalistic worldview, what beauty is reduced to. Basically utility.
Yeah, because if you have something outside of that, if it doesn't provide a utility, ideally in natural selection, it'll be selected against. If you have a huge, fan on your back that you have to carry around the whole time, it will naturally be selected against unless there is, in that case, like a mating advantage, something that the females will view as beautiful. You can look at what we see as beautiful for a few examples on the contrary. Like, for example, if you look at a desert landscape, or maybe the frozen tundra, or the Himalayas, these are all areas of the world which are very inhospitable, and really places that we should be avoiding if we want to survive. But they turn out to be very beautiful to us. This idea of nature, the Himalayas, lots of people climb Mount Everest, not only to show off to their friends, say that they climb the tallest mountain in the world, but because there exists a lot of beauty up there when you get that high. And it doesn't seem super obvious to me why that would be the case if our idea of beauty is simply a result of the selection towards these types of things that benefit us. On the contrary, I want to make super clear, some things do help us, in terms of survival and reproduction. Some things are beautiful, and they lead us to that way.
But they're not reductionistic. Like, that's the only purpose of it.
Yeah. Like, for example, and you look at fruit, you can see good fruit that's beautiful is good for food, whereas fruit that's brown and moldy, more ugly, is not as good for food. But the problem with naturalism, and the problem that the atheist has to come to terms with, is this bounty of things that are not good for our survival, that do not directly benefit us, or even indirectly benefit us, and try to explain why we get beauty from those things, why we chase after those things.
Okay, so that makes sense. So yeah, it doesn't have an explanation for why would we select for something that's beautiful but not useful. So it doesn't make sense of objective beauty. So that's naturalism. Are there do any other worldviews account for it? Like, we've talked about how Christianity accounts for it a little bit. We talked about, well, naturalism doesn't. Do like pantheism or like polytheism, do either of those, can they really account for beauty, Leo, at all?
And what are those? Just a quick.
Yeah. So for pantheism, basically the quick and simple of it is all is one in God and the universe. So there's no real distinction there. God is the universe, and there's not really any difference between beauty and ugliness in that. So if you go with pantheism, you have to bite the bullet and say that there's no such thing as beauty, really. And polytheism, there's not one standard for beauty. There's a bunch of different gods. Zeus's beauty might be different from Hera's or whoever else's. So the best explanation is monotheism. That's the idea that there is only one God. And from that, you derive one objective sense of truth, one objective morality, as well as an objective standard for beauty. And we can see that in many ways in the Christian worldview. You can see an abundance of beauty. C.S. Lewis puts it in a beautiful way. He says that we have an inconsolable longing for this beauty. And we have things in this world, a variety of things in this world that awaken in us this longing for something more, something beautiful, but never quite satisfies it. You look at all the desires that we have in our body, a desire to sleep, to eat, to drink. Those desires, when we partake in those things, they go away for a time. But on the contrary, beauty, when we seek after those things, when we experience beauty, it doesn't go away. In fact, it usually gets more and more fervent. This thing that we seek after, this desire, it stands vastly different than all of the other natural desires that we have as humans. And C.S. Lewis concludes then that because we have this, we're made for this desire to be fulfilled. We weren't made for this world and this world alone, that there's something besides this world that is sufficient and is designed to fully satisfy that desire.
Excellent way to close the podcast, Leo. Thank you for coming. And we are running out of time, so we're going to wrap up. But I will make kind of the appeal in a summary really quickly. The formal argument is that if God does not exist, objective beauty does not exist. Second step, objective beauty does exist. Third step, therefore God exists. So our appeal that we've kind of made throughout this past hour of time is that there is something called beauty out there, and it's not just us assigning it randomly to things. It exists, and we think that points to God. But now, to flip the script, Micah, I've come up with the challenge the past 2 weeks that we've done every week, and now it's Micah's turn. So Micah has a challenge for us this week as we live our lives.
So as you go out from here, we all have those things we think that are beautiful and we find to be very beautiful. So I would say take some time when you have that thought into your mind that, well, that's a beautiful sunset, or whether that be just a child at play. Think, how does this reflect something higher? How is this not something just I'm thinking, but something that pushes me or makes me look beyond to a higher truth? So next time you see something beautiful, try to think that way.
To use the quote that Leo brought us from C.S. Lewis, see something beautiful and analyze yourself. What does this make me long for? What is the thing that is making me think this is beautiful? And how does that relate us to our Creator? So that was it for this week. Thank
Yeah.
you for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you again, Leo, for coming in here. Yeah, I think we'll then close in prayer, and then we'll send you all out for the week. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, I do thank you that you have created this thing that we call beauty for our enjoyment, that you could have made a world that did not have beauty, and how boring and unsatisfying that world would be. Thank you that you did not do so, but that you made a place that we can enjoy, and that, even more importantly, points us back to you as the author and the foundation of beauty. And honestly, the most beautiful thing you ever did was to send your son to die on the cross to save us. Though it might seem on the surface to be a very ugly thing, what you did in that moment, Lord, is beyond anything else beautiful in your love for us. So thank you, Lord. Help us to share that beauty with all those around us. See the beauty you have made, and proclaim that, your goodness and your truth, to all those we come in contact with. And I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Yes, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Apologetics Radio on KSDJ 90.7. We're going to be here every Tuesday from 4 to 5 p.m., so make sure to come back next week, where we're going to be talking about historical evidences for the resurrection. So if that's something you've never really thought about, or you thought, man, did the resurrection really happen? We got Shyla. He's been doing a lot of research on this topic, and he is going to be taking a deep dive into why we can be sure the resurrection actually happened.
Hey, you got me excited, Micah.
And what it means for us as well.
Oh, yes. Again, large implications for that. So, yes, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Have a wonderful week.